Hey there, welcome to the Katelyn James YouTube channel. My name is Tyler Harrington. I am clearly not Katelyn James, but today we're doing something a little bit different in that we're gonna take you behind the scenes of the making of KJAA Access. So a lot of people ask us how we film KJAA Access, which if you're not familiar is Katelyn's membership program for photographers where you can basically be her virtual third shooter. So we follow her around on wedding days, on engagement sessions, and now recently on family sessions, and we basically just film her photographing the wedding or shoot or whatever it might be so that you guys can watch it. And we've had a lot of questions in Facebook groups and on comments on the YouTube channel about like, how do you film these things? What kind of goes into it? What are some of the logistics? What kind of gear do you use? All that fun stuff. So we're gonna kind of cover all of those logistical things in case you were ever curious or wondering. So when it comes to KJAA Access, I actually was not involved in the filming of KJAA Access for the first probably like 3 years that they did it. Believe it or not, for a long time, Katelyn's sister Emily actually was the one who was coming along with them and filming. So just goes to show you that you don't need to be a professional or have a professional videographer necessarily in order to film your own behind the scenes content. Emily has no real formal training as far as I know when it comes to filmmaking or video or anything like that. I did give them some gear recommendations for what gear to buy for Emily to use, but for the first 3 years of KJAA Access, it was all her. Now, in the last half of last year and then all of this year, all of 2022, I have been going with Katelyn and Michael and filming all the weddings. And the reason for that is more practical than it is anything else. Between Katelyn and Emily, they have 6 kids between the two of them. And, Katelyn and Emily's mom helps them with watching the kids and a lot of things like that. And it just got really logistically complicated for both Katelyn and Emily and Michael to leave on a wedding day, leaving poor old Joe. He is a trooper, but leaving poor old Joe behind with 6 kids, and then having to find childcare and all those different things, especially if there are weddings where they were going to be traveling out of state or whatever. It just got really complicated having 3 of the parents of those 6 kids leaving for every single wedding. So starting at the end of last year and then all of this year, I have been the one who's been going and filming. So we've done a couple things differently as a result, just because obviously I have more of a background in video and have access to more gear and things like that. So we're gonna do a really quick rundown of the gear that we use to film KJAA Access, which right at the top, disclaimer, this is not necessary. This is just because I love video and video is what I do for a living. So I have lots of expensive gear that you don't necessarily need to get started. Okay, so starting with the camera that we use is the Canon C70 right here. It's the same camera that I'm filming with right now. This is what we use for all of our YouTube videos, all of our courses. This is what I use for everything. I have 2 of them, and it is a cinema camera, which basically just means that it's specifically designed for video. So it has very video-centric features at its sort of core. The things I love about this for filming long-form behind-the-scenes content are a few things. One, the batteries are really big and they last for a long time in comparison to something, if you're shooting on something like an R6 or a mirrorless camera, something like that. With these batteries are big and they last a long time. So I actually only go through 2 batteries for the entire 8 or 9 hour long wedding day where I'm filming pretty much the entire time. Sometimes towards the end of the reception, I will have to switch to a 3rd battery, but for the most part, these batteries last a long time, which is really nice. When they used to film with Emily, they used a Sony a6400, which is a small, compact mirrorless camera. And for those, they told me they would bring like 9 or 10 batteries and go through all of them, and sometimes they'd have to be charging during the reception. So that's just one of the reasons why I love this camera. It has 2 card slots, so it can do dual recording, so our footage is always safe because there's nothing worse than a card getting corrupted or something happening. We have it all in there. There's lots of different codec options, so I can have a lot of control over like how big my files are going to be and how the quality, things like that. This camera has the ability to do 4 tracks of audio simultaneously, which basically all that means is that I can actually run the main lav that Katelyn is wearing. She wears a wireless microphone runs into the camera. I actually have physical controls on the back, which is really nice so that I can control her levels, but it gives me the ability to actually have a built-in safety track. So I have her normal volume for her mic, but sometimes if she's back really far away, she might start yelling to, projecting to the couple, or if she's doing family formal, she might be yelling and trying to get people's attention. She gets really, really loud, and that main audio level starts to peak a little bit. Well, I have a backup audio track below that I keep at a slightly lower volume. So when she starts to yell or get really loud in those sections, in editing, we can actually switch to the second track, which is recorded just a little bit quieter so that she's not peaking that audio. And then also, while I'm doing both of those, I can also be recording either the internal microphone on here, just in case something weird does happen with the lav mics, we don't lose all of our audio. Or I can put a little shotgun mic on here or whatever I wanted to and run it into the side, and I can have 2 more tracks of audio that way. So just a lot of flexibility when it comes to the audio. And the other main thing that's great about this is that it has unlimited record times. So some cameras, mirrorless cameras, things like that, have a 29-minute and 59-second recording limit, which when you're doing behind the scenes stuff, sometimes I'll be recording and I'll literally roll on this for 90 minutes straight. Like I'm just following her around, just if it's a busy part of the day and she's doing a lot of stuff, I'll be recording for a really long time. So it's just nice to not have to worry about that. And then there's a bunch of other like super video specific things that are just nerdy things that I love about this camera. But those are kind of like the main things that I really like about this camera. For the lens, we use the Canon 16-35 f2.8. This is a great lens for behind the scenes stuff because there's a lot of times where I'm in a hotel room with Katelyn or just in like really small spaces where I am kind of like backed up against a wall and I have nowhere that I can go, but I want to get the entire room in the shot. So being able to go out to 16, which is a very wide, not super flattering angle, which Katelyn doesn't really love, but it is nice to have the option to go there. I try not to stay all the way out at 16 if I have the option, like for filming outside or things like that where I have more room. I'll usually try and zoom in to closer to like 24 or 28 and then just physically back up so that I'm further away. Helps me to stay a little bit more out of the way when things are going on, things like that. But having that 16 is really nice for those certain situations where I find myself in like a really tight space and I need to shoot and show the entire scene. And then for the microphone, we use the Sennheiser AVX wireless kit. So this is the little receiver on here. You can see that it's not very big, which I do really like. And then this right here is what the pack that Katelyn wears. So she always wears biker shorts. If you watch KJAA Access, you are well aware of that fact. So she'll usually tuck this and like kind of clip it onto her shorts, under her dress, and then we just clip this right onto her dress. In the past, we've tried to hide it with stickies and stuff like that, but it gets really complicated, especially in the past when she's been like nursing or this or that or whatever. So we just clip it. We don't put any wind protection on or anything like that. It's usually fine. So the reason why I like this AVX wireless kit is because the batteries are actually interchangeable. So a lot of kits you'll see on the market, they have built-in rechargeable batteries, which for most scenarios are fine. But when it comes to behind the scenes and on a 9-hour-long wedding day, it gets really tricky because if you're going all day and you don't have time to charge the battery because you haven't had any breaks, and it starts to die, you either have to plug it into like a portable battery pack or take it off and just use something else or have multiples, or it just gets a little more complicated. These are nice because both the transmitter and the receiver have batteries that are interchangeable. So I can carry a couple of these batteries in my pocket, and if this is the one that actually dies the most, the transmitter that she wears, the battery lasts like 12 or 13 hours, so I actually never have to change this one. This one dies more often because it's just smaller, but I can put a couple of these in my pocket whenever one is about to die, take a 2-minute break to turn it off, change the battery, and keep going. We don't have to worry about charging. So that's really, really nice. So that's the camera. But this is technically from a cinema camera perspective, this is a very small and very lightweight camera. However, when it comes to filming and carrying it around all day and compared to a mirrorless camera, it is relatively heavy and not light. So because of that, we have to have, so we put the camera on a gimbal. But because this camera is not super small, we have to have a relatively beefy gimbal. So this is the gimbal that we use. It is a Ronin RS2. It is the highest payload pistol grip style gimbal that you can find. The next step up from this would be like a really big beefy two-handed like professional gimbal that would be very unpractical for a wedding day. So this thing is great, and again, it is relatively small and relatively light for the amount of weight that it can hold, but it is definitely not light. So but anyway, but I love this. It works really well, and it holds the weight of my big cinema camera. So because of both of those factors, you might have seen this on Instagram. You might have been wondering, what is that crazy thing? Well, let me show you. So because of how heavy these things are, we have to use this guy right here. This is called a Easy Rig Mini Max. And basically what it is it's a backpack with a pole that comes out the top, just like this. So I'm just gonna put it on here so you can see. So basically, you buckle this on like this. And then if you can pretend like there's a camera on here, basically what happens is that this attaches onto here, onto my gimbal when it's on, and then the camera would be right here, kind of pointing at you like this. There we go. And what this does is it takes all the weight. So instead of having to actually hold the camera with my arms and my forearms and my, my arm muscles, it takes all the weight, puts it into this string, which puts it into here, which puts it onto my back and on my shoulders and my hips and all those types of things, so that I can hold the camera all day long. Now, I don't care how heavy or light of a camera that you're using. Over 9 hours, holding anything out in front of you for 9 hours is going to be difficult. So with the smaller ones, I can take the gimbal, and I would kind of like rest it against my hip bone or like against my belt, things like that. But with this big camera and this big gimbal, it's just like very impractical, especially when you start changing settings and there's all the sorts of things that you're doing. I did film one wedding without this before I bought this, with this setup, with the C70 and this gimbal, and just hand holding it for 9 hours, and my forearm, the muscle in my forearm was numb for about 3 days after that. So I said, we got to do something different. So that's what this is. If you see it on social media, I know that it's kind of crazy looking. I would like to think that once you kind of get over the initial shock of seeing it, that it's not that much more obtrusive. Like on the wedding day, I'm still kind of just standing there. I'm taking up the same amount of space. I just look a little crazy. I do get, comments from guests pretty much every single reception. There's always 1, 2, 3. There's always people come up to me during the reception and are like, "Whoa, what is that thing?" or blah, 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 or make some kind of comment about me being a robot or whatever. So it is a little crazy, and it makes me feel a little self-conscious sometimes, but it does save my arms, and I wouldn't be able to film without it. And then the last little piece of like really important gear, just to kind of like mention in this whole kit, if you care, is a pair of headphones. So these are like Shure, I can put the exact name on the screen, but these are just basically Shure, like kind of like in-ear monitor headphones. Now this isn't necessarily, you could use iPhone headphones. I used to use like regular earbuds for a long time. I bought this one because it has a really strong cable, and there's a few times where I accidentally like pulled the cable really hard, accidentally got snagged on something, and I didn't want it to break. So these are nice, and they just stay in my ears really well, and they're kind of, they go around your ear, so they're hidden and you can't really tell you're wearing them. But having some sort of headphones to monitor the lav mic during the day is really important, just in case something goes wrong. We've had things in the past where it came unclipped a little bit, or there was some sort of rustling, or sometimes, in the past we used to hide the mic. It fell all the way down, and it was like down by her hip, and so you couldn't really hear what she was saying. And if you're not paying attention, 2-3 hours can go by and you're not realizing that you have like a major audio problem if it's not showing up in your waveforms or in your audio meters. So anyway, having some sort of headphones is really, really important. They don't have to be high quality or anything like that. Just something so you can hear, just to hear if there are any problems. Okay, so that's the like gear side of things. That was as brief as I can explain it. Hopefully it wasn't too crazy. But that is what we bring. It is not necessary to have all of these things at this like caliber or level or whatever, but this is just what I have, so I'm gonna use it. But yeah, it works for us. Okay, so that's a little bit of the practical, like technical, like the gear and stuff that we use. From a very just like practical standpoint, for anybody wondering like how does the process work? It's really not that complicated, I guess. I just so we get there to the wedding day. We always I always the night before and make sure I'm like prepping everything in terms of batteries and cards and getting all my settings right and getting everything just sort of dialed in. So when you get there, I literally just like hand the microphone to Katelyn, put everything together, hit record, and we're off. Because once the day starts, it's just we're going. And the interesting thing about it is that like while you're filming like nothing, you're always filming. You're never not filming. So you really need to have everything kind of like dialed in and ready to go at the beginning of the day, especially in terms of, thinking through things like having extra batteries in your pockets, having all the things that you need like on you or nearby or whatever, because we're constantly, in this mode of filming. You can't really go off and like take a break and like go to the bathroom or go grab this or go grab that or run back to the car or whatever. Like once it starts, like if you're not filming, you're gonna miss it. So like any important moments, because like for KJAA Access, everything is important for the most part. So we're especially at the beginning of the day, it's sort of like once you're in, you've got to be like ready and locked in, ready to go. So we do a little intro. I kind of film Katelyn and she'll say what we're doing, and then it's just kind of like go time from there. I'm following her constantly. We're going inside, we're going outside. You really need to be familiar with the camera because you are making a lot of adjustments on the fly in terms of, going from different lighting changes, the white balance is changing, the exposure is changing, all sorts of things are happening. But in terms of what I'm actually thinking about, like what's going on in my brain, I'm trying to think about the scene in a way that would make the most sense and give you the most information possible as a photographer who's viewing it. So in terms of like the angle which I'm standing, what I'm trying to include in the frame, all those different types of things are things that I'm trying to think through. So just making sure that like if there's a big tree over here that's providing shade, that I'm not cutting that out, or making sure that you can actually see what the background is looking like, or if she's trying to position them in a specific way, I'm just trying to make sure that you have a bit of an angle that you can see that from behind the scenes so that you understand like what all exactly is going into Katelyn's thought process and mindset. And a lot of times, sometimes it is hard when it comes to filming behind the scenes, because if the light is good on this subject, that usually means that the light coming the opposite direction, like onto Katelyn, and the other direction that we're filming is usually not good. So a lot of times you're dealing with harsh light that's not really great, and I'm kind of just trying to make the best of it. So my like wedding filmmaker brain gets crushed a little bit sometimes filming behind the scenes, because it's not really about making it pretty. It's really just more about showing all the information that you need to show so that people watching get the context of what's going on and they can learn as much as possible. So that's always what I'm thinking through when I'm filming these behind the scenes. So I think that the biggest change that hopefully you'll be able to notice when you're watching KJAA Access from me filming versus me not filming is going to be just like, again, the audio quality, because I have the different audio channels that I'm monitoring and I'm constantly adjusting levels. I'm always trying to make sure that the audio sounds as good as possible, that we never have any issues with peaking and things like that. And that because I'm monitoring the audio in my ears, we're always looking out for any sort of issues that might arise. I do have like backup lavs and backup everything in case something does kind of wonky goes on. So those are the types of things that I'm able to kind of help with. And then the same thing with just like the quality and the consistency of the frame itself, because I am dialing in all my settings manually. And as we're going around, I'm adjusting the white balance, I'm dialing in the exposure, I'm using built-in ND filters so that we have a proper shutter speed at all times. We're not cranking it up and getting sort of really crazy high shutter speeds. All those types of like little nuancy things that you probably don't need to really think about. But those are the types of things that I am always kind of doing behind the scenes and adjusting. So hopefully those come across in the final product itself. So while it is a relatively simple process, you would think like, oh yeah, we're just gonna like follow you around with the camera all day. There is actually a lot that goes into it, especially because it is such a long period of time that you're filming. It is very abnormal to have to film anything for 9 however many hours of actual footage that we end up with. It's usually not 9 hours of footage, but it's probably like 5 or 6 hours of actual recording time. So that's a lot of stress to put on a camera. While it is like relatively simple task, there is, a lot more that goes into it behind the scenes than you might think. So hopefully this has been interesting and insightful to you just in terms of like kind of what we go through. All right, so I think that just about covers it. I do have a request though from you. If you're watching this and you are a KJAA All Access member and you have any sort of feedback for me that's more of like on the technical side of things, like things that you really appreciate, things that you wish were different, any of those types of things that you're just like, hey, if I could talk to the person who's filming this and tell them a couple of things, or even I don't do the editing, but we can pass it along to those who do. Leave those in the comments down below. I'd love to hear any sort of feedback, whether positive or constructive, on things that you may want to see differently, or things that would enhance your experience, or things that you might have noticed. Any of those types of things, that would be super well appreciated, and it would really help us to make KJAA Access that much better in the future. And maybe you're out there and you're not a member of KJAA Access, but you want to check it out. You're like, this sounds interesting. Well, lucky for you, there is a 5-day free trial where you can go sign up. You can get access to the entire vault for free for 5 days. You can go back and watch any of the dozens and dozens of weddings that are in there, full-length wedding days, engagement shoots, portrait sessions, and now family sessions, all in there for 5 days. You can watch as many of it as you want. And if you like it and you want to sign up, it's only $29 a month, and you get access to the entire vault the first time that you sign up. It's definitely worth $29 a month. Highly, highly suggest it. One of the best investments that you can make in the KJ education sphere in terms of just like value to dollars. Can't recommend it enough. So thank you guys for watching. And this is a little bit different of an episode, but we just wanted to give you a little peek behind the scenes into like how we film all this stuff and what goes into it. Hopefully somebody out there enjoyed it. If not, Katelyn will be back next week. So make sure you subscribe if you're not already, because we post new videos every single Thursday. And there's a little bell down there. Just go ahead and click on that sucker, and then YouTube will actually notify you whenever we post a video, so you will know, be the first to know. Big announcement coming next week. You want to come back and check out that one. So thank you all for watching. See you next time. Bye.